Good afternoon. Today is the 21st of February and I'm looking forward to some pancakes later on, viewers. I'm sure that many of you are too. I want to talk today about something that, I and many other channels have talked about in the past, and that's the ultra low emission and clean air zones that have been cropping up all over the country. Now, I first started talking about this topic in October 2018. I've made in excess of 10 videos about this subject, although my videos aren't the most popular out there on the internet. I think Mr. Hunter from Jeff Buys Cars now tends to be the most popular, but I do like to make them from time to time. This doesn't actually concern the London ultra low emission zone specifically, although most of my videos have been about that particular one. It concerns the Birmingham clean air zone. Now, there are clean air zones cropping up all over the country at the moment. At some point in the video I'll take a pause and I'll insert just a caption of just how many there are. The Sheffield one's actually coming in next week. Now, some of these, like the Portsmouth one, which is local to where I live, we're just on our way to Winchester at the moment. We're in a place called Chandler's Ford, which is near Eastleigh. The Portsmouth one doesn't actually relate to private cars at all. It doesn't relate to it, but I think that's going to change at some point. And because my lady wife at the moment actually drives every week into Portsmouth, I think she drives into where the clean air zone is, it could quite possibly actually affect us as well. So specifically what we're talking about today is the Birmingham clean air zone. Now, if you have an MG Rover era car, as I do, and actually my 2003 Rev 45 V6 is Birmingham clean air zone compliant as well as London ultra low emission zone compliant, then it seems quite fitting that we're talking about this particular subject, and it does relate to an MG Rover era car. One of my friends recently sold an MG ZR, a petrol one, which is compliant with the ultra low emission zone, and he changed the plate on it because he has a personal plate that he uses, and the personal plate came off the car when he sold it, which is absolutely fine. There's no problem there. But what he found was that he got a fine driving into the Birmingham clean air zone. And for the sake of clarity, the Birmingham clean air zone is very simple to explain. It's the area inside the middleway in Birmingham, the A4540, not the road itself, but the area entirely within it. That's very easy to explain. It's actually easier to explain than the London ultra low emission zone is at the moment. Yeah, a lot of MG Rover era vehicles are actually compliant with it. Some of them aren't, but some of them are, including my 45 V6 and his ZR. And he was very surprised when he got a fine through the door with his car, which he thought was compliant. He'd never got one before. He'd been in there a few times with his personal plate on, but when he took the personal plate off and put this old one, the original one, back on, he got the fine, which is really strange. And I asked him about this. I said, "Is this the only time you've ever heard of this happening?" He said, no, there's loads of examples of this happening. And I dug a little deeper, and he's absolutely right. I couldn't find anything specifically in my search about somebody being fined when they'd taken a personal plate off a car and then put the original one back on. But I was able to find two articles from the Birmingham Mail about something that had happened, and various things that had happened to do with clean air zone monitoring glitches. They're both from last year, the articles. I'll link them in the video description below. And one of them relates to a chap who drove into the Birmingham Clean Air Zone in his Forbidden Fuel Mercedes C-Class. I am driving a C-Class today as well, funnily enough. And he paid the fine. The money was returned, and then he got he got a massive fine later. Sorry, it wasn't a fine. He paid a fee. He paid £8 a day fee to take his car in. He lives in South Wales, so he doesn't go in very often. And yeah, he had to try to ring up and sort it out. But he said that he tried about 20 times and they couldn't get through to the council to sort that out. A later article then apologised for all these glitches, and a couple of other ones were the man who was watching a nativity play about 150 miles away when he was supposed to have been driving in the Clean Air Zone in his non-compliant car. Exactly the same time he was doing that, he was supposed to be in the zone, but he wasn't. A lady from West Sussex who'd received tons and tons of fines despite never having been anywhere near the zone as well. And they would be funny, but they're kind of not, because these are people who are being fined for doing absolutely nothing. It's just an error on the system. And these ones in Birmingham can't be the only ones that are happening. Let's just go over again the rules for the ultra emission zone in Birmingham Clean Air Zone, because they're exactly the same. Now, other zones around the country have different rules, so this won't necessarily apply to them, but let's just go over the rules again as to what cars are compliant, or should be compliant in this case, and which ones are not. So I'm driving today a 2017 Mercedes-Benz C200. It's a petrol. That's absolutely fine, as are virtually all cars if registered after January 2006. There are a lot of cars though that with petrol engines that are compliant before that. An example would be the MG ZR itself that started off this story, and also my Rover 45 V6. They were made before January 2006, but a lot of cars were Euro 4 emissions compliant before then. Some cars as early as 2001 are Euro 4 emissions compliant, and therefore you don't have to pay the ultra emission zone charge in London or the Clean Air Zone charge in Birmingham. The way that MG Rover cars actually become Euro 4 compliant is a little bit complicated. I don't really want to talk about that. It's not that relevant really, but the fact is that a lot of them are, some of them aren't, but these particular two are. With the diesel cars, the Forbidden Fuel, we can't talk about that on the channel because the Mayor of London and all his friends around the country, well, they say that I can't. It's much, much stricter. Now bear in mind that any car, I think it's before 1983, is compliant automatically. You don't have to pay road tax on those. I recommend you get an MOT if you have a car at that time, but you don't technically have to have one. And also you don't have to pay ultra emission zone charges on those at all, regardless of what type of engine it is. You don't have to. I think you might have to update the status if your car is over 40 years old this year. Sometimes you have to do that, but you know those don't form part of it at all. It's for those from 1983 all the way up to September 2015 that have Forbidden Fuel engines. Now some of them that were made before September 2015 are Euro 6 compliant. That's okay. It's the emissions standard we're looking for, not necessarily the actual date, but every car sold after September 2015 would have had to be compliant with it. So petrol, it's far more lenient, as I've said. So those are the standards they're supposed to be, but clearly if your system is not working properly, then yes, you might accidentally get fined. Or in the case of a man from South Wales, he paid the fee, the money was returned, and then he got a fine, which was most unfortunate. All these systems, of course, are monitored by cameras, and they operate by an electronic database to say if the car or vehicle, obviously for their bikes and vans and HGVs and buses and things going in and out of this as well. So to say that the vehicle's compliant or not, and sometimes there are errors, and the leader of the Labour-run Birmingham Council did apologise for the errors in the second article from the Birmingham Mail. But just be very careful if this is a specific thing to you, and you do live in Birmingham or any other place that has an ultra low emission zone and clean air zone, but if you change the registration number of it, if you take off a personal plate, as my friend did, if you put on a personal plate of it, just make sure that is going to mean that the status of the car, particularly if it's a compliant one, isn't going to change, because dealing with stupid fines like that is not something very desirable. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below, and we shall see you again soon for more surprisingly accurate information.